Welcome back to the Family IT Guy podcast. Today we have Mike McLeod. Mike is a speech language pathologist and an ADHD executive function specialist. And I have so many questions for you, Mike, but why don't we start off by give us a bit of your background. What do you do and where do you come from and what do you focus on?
Of course, yeah. So my name is Mike McLeod. I'm the owner of Grow Now ADHD, and I'm an ADHD and executive functioning specialist. So long story short, I started my career as a speech and language pathologist and was working directly with students there on improving their communication skills, their quality of life, their social skills. I ended up working very closely with this national nonprofit group that specialized in boys with ADHD and various other chromosomal issues. And I learned very quickly that there's very little out there for kids and teens with ADHD that are actually working. So these kids are being sent to talk therapy and counseling and social skills groups and cognitive behavioral therapy. Just a long list of all these things that parents are spending their time and money on, and nothing's helping and nothing's working. And as an individual with ADHD myself, I was very emotionally connected to this topic and obviously the success of these youth. So I took a deep dive into Dr. Russell Barkley, Dr. George McCloskey, Sarah Ward, Dr. Ned Hallowell, all the great pioneers in this field. And I developed the Grow Now model of internal skills, which I'm sure we can talk about today. And we did a year-long research study on it, and everything's really expanded from there. And now we provide individualized executive functioning coaching and internal skills training to students all over the world of all ages, whether it's in person or virtually. The foundation to our program is fully personalized parent training. So the parents are highly involved and the parents are involved. We do an executive functioning summer camp. I travel the world and I do a lot of school professional development where I train schools on how to best, bring executive functioning into the classroom in ways that benefit all students. And in January 2026, I have two books coming out, the Executive Functioning Playbook and the Executive Functioning Playbook in Action Workbook for both parents and educators to use with their kids or their students to help strengthen these internal executive functioning skills.
Awesome. That's so great. I have some people in my life that have recently, as adults, been exploring their potential for ADHD diagnoses and whether or not they have ADHD and what to do and what that looks like. From a very basic perspective, because I have no real knowledge on the topic here, like what does it look like? Because you mentioned, for example, kids going through processes and not necessarily getting their symptoms addressed. What does it look like before and after? How do when you see a kid that has ADHD, how do you tell? And then how do you tell if it's being addressed properly or resolved? What does that look like?
Sure. So to start with, ADHD is a terrible name for ADHD. It is not an attention. It is not an attention disorder. It's not about hyperactivity and kids who can't sit still and inattentive kids who can't pay attention. All of that is outdated nonsense, and it's not. And it's helping and it's forcing kids into therapies and approaches that aren't working, like talk therapy and counseling and things like that are not moving the needle and not helping. ADHD is the preeminent disorder of executive functioning. So that is incredibly important. ADHD is not an attention disorder. It is an executive functioning disorder. And there's a big push now from the pioneers in this field to change ADHD to EFDD, executive functioning developmental disorder. And just like ADHD is very misunderstood, so is executive functioning. Most people hear the term executive functioning and they think it's time management, organization, messy backpacks, messy folders, the ability to track your time and use alarms and use reminders. And that also is very outdated information. Executive functions are the greatest predictor of success for human beings, period. If you want to be able to move out of your parents' house, get a job, keep a job, make friends, keep friends, and live an independent, successful life, you need executive functions. They are a greater predictor of success than your grades, grades, your GPA, your high school diploma, your college diploma, your athletic ability, any of those things, you need executive functions. And I break down executive functions into what I call the 4 pillars of skills that sort of break this down. So I'll run through it rather quickly. The first is self-awareness, which is the ability to understand the things that you do, how they affect you and how they affect others. So are you aware of your impact on other people around you in your environment, and also the impact you have on yourselves with the choices and things you do? So self-awareness, number 1. Number 2 is the big one, which is self-regulation, which is the ability to regulate your emotions, your language, your body, your behavior in various environments towards various stimuli. And this is the big one. So it's not attention deficit hyperactivity. It's the inability to regulate your body. It's not inattentiveness. It's the inability to regulate your thoughts and your mind. So it's not attention deficit disorder. It's self-regulation deficit disorder, an inability to regulate oneself, which is why I'm sure we're going to talk today. One of the many reasons why you can't discuss ADHD in today's world without also discussing a really debilitating and life-altering screen addiction. Those two things go absolutely hand in hand. So self-awareness, self-regulation. Number 3, self-motivation towards non-preferred tasks. So the ability to motivate oneself towards anything that is non-screen based or not directly within their comfort zone. And then number 4, self-evaluation, the ability to learn from past experiences, apply it to the present, and not repeat mistakes over and over.
This, I'm doing some self-reflection as you're.
All right, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. It's a podcast or a therapy session.
I think maybe both. We'll see.
Nice. I like it.
Oh man, that's great. I mean, I think, and it sounds so constructive. You know, just from what I just hear in passing about attention deficit disorders, and I appreciate what you're saying there about it's perhaps a nonsense term. I mean, it seems like with every rabbit hole I go down on every niche of medicine and health in general, that tends to be the case. You know, like, oh yeah, actually the general understanding over here is totally incorrect. It's actually this other thing. Now, how did you come to find the association with executive function and come to these conclusions where that you've come to?
I would say the vast majority of it came from Dr. Russell Barkley. Dr. Russell Barkley is the worldwide leader on ADHD and executive functioning. He just recently retired, but he is literally second to none. He is the Michael Jordan of ADHD. He is the best of the best. You can type his name into the YouTube app, the podcast app. I've read every single one of his books. Nobody has published more research. No one's published more books. Nobody's worked with more individuals across the lifespan than he has. He is the number one source of real information, not social media pseudoscience nonsense. You know, ADHD is a very trendy topic on ADHD. Anybody can make an ADHD page and get 1 million followers, or, oh, I have ADHD, I'm so silly, I drive my spouse crazy, I go to the same store 20 times a day because I keep forgetting things. Like, it's very easy to make a trendy topic meme ADHD page, but the real source of real information comes from Dr. Russell Barkley. And one of the greatest ADHD lectures of all time he gave in Canada for CADIC, it's called, I believe. And he really breaks it down in terms of ADHD being a disorder of executive dysfunction and executive functions. And that's the prefrontal cortex. You know, the brain develops from back to front over the first 30 years of life. So this part of the brain right here, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, is the home of executive functions, and it's not fully there until 30 years old. So it takes 30 years of relationships and experiences, not lectures and worksheets and heart-to-hearts and monologues from mom, that develop the executive functioning system. It's relationships and experiences that build it. And obviously with, you know, the screen-based world we live in, relationships and experiences don't look very good for today's generation of youth.
Yeah, man, that's something I find myself thinking about a lot is how disconnected people are being, including kids, on these devices where, in my mind, my optimal relationship scenario, and I don't know, maybe this is stating the obvious, is sitting right in front of somebody where we're a few feet apart and I can see the movements in their face and I can feel whatever sort of subconscious energy is in the room. And it's like now adults and kids alike are being fooled into thinking they have relationships with people that they have no actual interaction with. And like, what does that mean for their ability to develop and like the way you're describing it, like actually practice executive functions, perhaps. And so how is and let me see if I can sort of say the words correctly here, and correct me if not, but so the executive function, or did you call it a dysregulation, or what was the word you used?
It's a developmental disorder of
Developmental
executive
disorder.
functioning. Yes.
So for the people that experience these symptoms and perhaps have been told that they have ADHD, for example, when it's actually EFDD, how how does that come about? Is that a set of experiences that they didn't have when they were young, so therefore the executive function didn't develop? Is it a chemical thing that puts some people in a place where it's harder to develop these things? Like, how does it come about?
Well, true ADHD is true neurodiversity. The brain is different compared to individuals of the same age and same gender. The brain is different in all three areas: structure, function, and development. So if you have ADHD, you are most likely born with it. It's hereditary. One or both parents have it, and you inherited that, and your brain now acts differently than the neurotypical brain. That's number one. But overall, today, we are currently going through the worst youth mental health crisis in history. We have to discuss that, but not enough people are talking about it. It's a very big deal in terms of suicide rates, self-harm, inpatient, outpatient, all of these different things. School refusals are through the roof. This is the generation of youth that is getting the most therapy, the most counseling, the most medication, the most support, the most socio-emotional classes at school, and they're the most depressed. And it's also the generation of parents that are getting the most parenting advice all the time and are the most burnt out and frustrated. And the number one thing that you can point back to the cause of all of this is the rise of screens and the decline of play. And along with the rise of screens became a total decrease in play and boredom. And the second we stole play and boredom from childhood, then started the youth mental health crisis, and kids ended up being home far more often than they should be, where you're stuck being under mom and dad's microscope all the time. If screens aren't in front of you, you're seeking conflict and all those sorts of things. So I think along with this youth mental health crisis, we've seen an incredible decline in executive functions overall, where it's not necessarily a true neurodiverse brain that has these brain structure changes. We see an overall delay in executive functioning along with this youth mental health crisis and depression, because this generation of youth is not having the relationships and experiences that human beings need. Human beings are social animals, experience-based animals. So I think you hear it from teachers and college professors all over the world. The creativity, the critical thinking skills, the self-help skills, the ability to think for themselves and be independent. We're seeing first semester college dropout rates skyrocket. I think we're seeing an absolute pandemic now of lagging executive functioning skills. And is that the core reason for the skyrocketing of ADHD diagnoses? It's very hard to say. Or have we underdiagnosed for too long? I'm not at liberty to answer that question. I don't have the information to fully answer that question. It's probably a little bit of a mix of both, where we have underdiagnosed for so long, especially females, but now overall, we see a significant delay in executive functions within this age of youth overall.
Oh, it makes so much sense, and it's so sad. It's I came across some data. Speaking of the depression and you hear about a lot of anxiety and stuff amongst kids.
Yep.
I was preparing for a lecture last year, and I was going to talk about these things, and I realized that I didn't really have any good data on the anxiety and depression issue, but I'd heard a lot of people talk about how bad it is. And long story short, I ended up finding data that is sort of downstream. I looked at the World Health Organization's mortality database, and they have a global set of data where they've analyzed death certificates since 1951. And I pulled data for the US for ages 0 to 39. And I analyzed it from 1951 until 2019, because I wanted to cut it off at 2019 so that I could exclude any effects from COVID. And what I found, and I have this on my website, I have this article called Digital Danger Zone, is that there's these 3 age groups where if you chart the percentage of deaths that are self-inflicted, if you chart that over time, the age groups of 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and 20 to 24 had these severe increases after 2007.
There you have it.
To the effect that, for example, ages 10 to 14, the numbers tripled between 2007 and 2019. It went from roughly, it was like 5% of deaths that were self-inflicted. It went to like 17% or something like that. And you can
take that chart. You can take that chart right there you're talking about, and you could juxtapose it right next to the chart that Jonathan Haidt uses in The Anxious Generation called social deprivation, where basically it shows age groups and how many hours spent with peers face to face in person, and you will see it absolutely plummet for ages birth to 18 after the launch of the iPhone. So right along social deprivation down, depression and self-harm up.
Yeah, it's just so awful. And I just think about the follow-on effects. Like you mentioned, the first semester dropout rates, where we're starting to see these things occur where the kids that were young in 2007 are, now getting into college age, and we're seeing these effects. And, I wonder what that's going to be like as they start to have kids. And I know sometimes big problems help to manifest in reactions that can, where they get addressed. And I really hope that's the case. But it okay. So on the executive function thing, how can people go about determining if they have an actual neurodiversity issue, or if they have something that just presents the same symptoms, but is not actually, because they have a different brain?
Well, step one is to get a very thorough evaluation. That's the biggest thing. The problem now with, obviously, we know the problems with medicine and insurance. We have a lot of individuals performing ADHD evaluations that probably shouldn't be doing it, but it's the cheapest way to do it through insurance. And the best way to get a real thorough evaluation, obviously, are for the people who can afford it. The haves and have-nots of medicine and healthcare, of course. We all know how that goes. But overall, it needs to be a very, very thorough evaluation. There is no one true test to test for ADHD and executive functioning, because executive functioning is a very fancy term for your imagination. It's your ability to use your imagination. The foundation to all executive functions is a skill called nonverbal working memory, which is your ability to make mental movies of the past, using your hindsight, and learn from past experiences and apply it to the present moment. And also your ability to visualize the future and how the future might play out, so you can visualize it, work towards that future, play with that future, plan, prioritize, and problem solve. So all executive functioning starts with nonverbal working memory and the ability to make mental movies. And if you don't have that skill and that's significantly delayed, you're going to struggle with executive functions. And the ADHD brain has that as a prerequisite skill where they lack the ability to visualize and then have an internal privatized dialogue. Dr. Russell Barkley, of course, talks about this better than anybody else. But of course, now with the rise of screens have stolen boredom from childhood. And what do we do when we're bored? We use our imaginations. We visualize the day we just had. We visualize the day that's ahead, and we play with the future, and we sit there and we learn to self-regulate and learn to self-soothe. We now have an entire generation of youth that is never bored, has entertainment at the palm of their hands. They have an entertainment system in their pocket that creates the images for them. So why create the images themselves? No wonder they can't get things done. We all know that book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. What was number 1? Start with the end in mind. Visualize the end result and work towards it. Kids today can't do that, and this is why we see so much task refusal. Your kids saying no to everything you ask of them, starting 3-hour fights over 5 minutes of homework, telling the teacher, I'm not doing this, and going to the bathroom or hiding under their desk or causing a problem. They don't even start because they can't visualize the end result. So in terms of figuring out ADHD, you have to get a very thorough evaluation that involves lots of observations in the home, at school, and socially, analyze writing samples, analyze reading samples, and it's all about how deeply does it impact your quality of life. And there's a lot of very prominent neuropsychs and psychiatrists, mostly on the West Coast, that are now telling the families on the wait list, I am not going to evaluate your child for ADHD until they have gone through a 3-month screen detox. So they have to go 3 months with 3 months of no screens, and I'm not even going to evaluate them until they go through a screen detox, which is a very controversial thing. Is that a good idea? Is it not? I don't know. I'm not the one doing evaluations, but it makes a lot of sense.
It does. It makes so much sense, and it's so crazy. And I say that in jest, but like how truly hard and complicated that can be. Like we found ourselves in a place where that concept to some people will just be immediately dismissed. And I get a lot of comments on my videos to this effect of like, well, what do you mean? How am I supposed to not give my kid all these things? Or what are we supposed to do when they go to school and they have all these things? And then they go to their friend's house and their friend has all these things. And it's, man, we're in such a difficult place. And then it's like, you know, I get a lot of parents that write comments to me and emails to me and stuff, messages to me about how they're made to feel so bad if they take the stuff away, or if they feel like they're socially isolating their kid if they take away their ability to message on Snapchat or something.
It sounds like you and I have very similar mailboxes and similar inboxes. I get every single day, I get very angry, sometimes very hateful messages, sometimes very heart-wrenching messages. And this is what we're in. This is exactly it. You know, number one, we have literally trillion-dollar companies and organizations that have figured out, hey, wait a second, we are going to make our most money. We're going to make our most profit off of kids. And we're going to make our most profit off of neurodiverse kids that can't regulate themselves. We live in a world now where attention is the currency. You know, things like YouTube, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, all of those things are free to download, free to play. So how are they making trillions of dollars? Because they want your kid playing as long as possible so they can steal their data and then sell their data and throw ads in their face. That's it. That's the only way YouTube makes money. How does YouTube pay all these YouTube creators hundreds of millions of dollars, like Mr. Beast and this and that? It's because they get money for how long your kid stays on YouTube. And YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, all of these organizations have teams of psychologists on their staff teaching them how to make it as addicting as possible. These are true addicting drugs. I have worked with far too many families that have had their families torn apart by video games, YouTube, smartphones. They've had to call the police on their kids, self-harm, trashing the place, physical aggression towards mom. We're basically seeing the exact same behaviors as an alcoholic, a drug addict, a gambling addict. It's a true addicting drug, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. And
this episode of the Family IT Guy podcast is sponsored by me. iPhone parental controls are notoriously difficult to set up correctly. When parental controls are too complicated, parents give up. And when parents don't use the tools, children pay the price. So I created a step-by-step guide that shows you exactly how to set up an iPhone to protect your child from addiction and from predators. You can disable the internet, disable the app store, and disable the camera. You can make the screen black and white so that the iPhone becomes a tool instead of a toy. You will have confidence and peace of mind, and your child can be protected from the most dangerous parts of the internet. Go to familyitguy.com to learn more.
And the reason why you and I are getting these messages, if parents just take a deep breath and look themselves in the mirror, the reason why you're saying these things, it is 100% out of fear. You know, there's enough research, there's enough headlines, there's enough things you've seen that show just how horrible screens are for kids. You've seen everything on Instagram, Facebook, the news, everything. You've probably even read The Anxious Generation, and you know that screens lead to depression. And screens will make your child not want to do anything else. And it's going to negatively impact them. You know, parents know, but they feel like they can't say no, because if I don't give my kid a phone, they're not going to have friends. They're going to be socially isolated. Or the one that always gets me is they're not going to be ready for the tech-filled future. They're not going to be prepared for the future. That. Well, yeah. When meanwhile, they're probably already better at screens than you are. And it's all coming from fear. And what's the best way in America, in capitalism, to sell a product? Fear. If you don't give this to your kid, they're not going to be successful. They are going to be socially ostracized. They are going to be the weird ones. So that's the best way to sell it, is this is a product that your kid needs, or else they won't be successful socially, at school, and all of those things. So fear-based marketing works, and parents are acting out of fear. And the only reason screens are still in so many kids' pockets and hands and homes is because of parental fear.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's actually very reasonable and normal for people to have a lot of fear on this topic, because,
of course,
this is all new stuff, and to be a parent in this age, all of a sudden you have to be a tech expert.
Correct.
And it's like there's a new category of parenting. And I think a lot of adults are just beginning to come to grips with what it means to consider even saying no to all this stuff that's free, right? And like, what does it mean? How does it impact us as adults? How does it impact us as parents? It's funny, like you mentioned with the executive function thing, the first thing being self-awareness. I think that was the first one, right?
Yeah.
And so do we have self-awareness of how these things are impacting us, and what are the trades that we're making? And can we self-regulate even on how we use our own technology so that we can show our kids what the deal is? Like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what I found out about my own self. Here's the changes I'm going to make. Here's the future I'm envisioning for myself and for us as a family. Let me show you as I go along the way that it's actually really hard. So I'll show you when I fail. I'll show you when I succeed. And demonstrating to the kids and effectively helping them develop the skills that they need so that when they're out on their own, they know that it can be done and they know how to go about even thinking about it.
Yeah. So maybe let's run through all of the cognitive distortions that parents tell themselves that ends up keeping them to keep screens in the kid's life, even though they know they have to be removed. Number one is if I cancel my son's phone plan and remove his smartphone, he's going to lose all his friends. All of his friends only talk on Snapchat. No one uses iMessage. No one uses text message. Without Snapchat, he's going to lose all his friends. He's not going to be able to make plans, and he's going to be socially ostracized. So I have been doing this with families since 2016, helping them cancel phone plans and remove phones from kids' lives. Every single one of them, the second you bring it up to a parent that they have to get rid of their kid's phone, their face instantly becomes ghost white. How am I possibly going to do this? This is terrifying. And the first thing is always, they're going to lose all their friends. They need Snapchat. And, nothing in child development, nothing in therapy and coaching and parent training is ever 100% accuracy, but this is pretty damn close. Just about every single family we have ever worked with that has canceled their kid's phone, that kid ended up becoming more socially successful. They made more friends, better friends, ended up doing more things, ended up being involved in more things. We all know it as adults. Social media and phones isolate you and make you more antisocial. Period. So part of big tech's marketing plan is that this is a social tool. Social media and cell phones are a social tool, but that is one of the biggest lies in capitalism history. We all know. So the big tech says, get your kid a phone. It will make them social, smart, and safe. And we now have over 10 years of data that tells us when your kid gets a phone, they become antisocial, more dependent on you, and completely dormant. So they go from safe, smart, and social to depressed, dormant, and dependent, from the 3 S's to the 3 D's. It's as simple as that. And we all know it as adults. We have become more isolated on our phones and more antisocial. Back in the day, we used to know our neighbors and do more things. And now adults lay in bed on their phones, and adults are just as addicted, all of that kind of stuff. We've become more divided and more isolated as people since the rise of phones. And why would you want that on your kid? And we have decades of data now that show kids without phones are at a social advantage because they are not reliant on the phone to entertain them and do those things. They are now more motivated and engaged face to face to do more social things. So that's number one. The cognitive distortion, they will lose all friends, which is completely false. Number two,
Can we dig into that for a second? Sorry
please.
to pause you there.
Please.
I want to talk about each of these, but I'm for the folks listening that are thinking like, okay, dude, whatever, BS. So, and by the way, I'm not one of them because I love what you're saying. But like, what are some of the trade-offs that you've seen happen as it plays out? Is there an initial hump to overcome of, did they go, a few days were like, crap, I don't know how to get a hold of so-and-so. What struggles did they go through in order to come out the other side of gaining the benefits?
So this is why parent training is the number one recommendation for ADHD and executive functioning. I talked about this in the beginning of our recording, that these kids are being sent to talk therapy and counseling, like going and talking to a therapist office or Zooming with a therapist for an hour is going to make you more easily self-regulate or want to be on your phone less or curse and scream at mom less. It's nonsense. Parent training is the number one recommendation, period. And this is why. I said it before, screens are a drug. So if you cancel your kid's phone plan, you need a parent trainer to hold your hand because over the next 2 weeks, you're in for it. You are going to watch your child withdraw from a drug. It's as simple as that. You gave them a screen before their brain was ready for it. And now they are fully addicted. You now have to remove that screen, and you're going to have to persevere through 2 weeks of withdrawals for long-term gain and long-term success. And they are going to withdraw. They're going to cry, scream, freak out, break things, maybe do some physical aggression. It could start with anger, and then it can go towards, you're the worst parents ever. Why do you hate me? Nobody likes me. You're ruining my life. My life sucks. I'm not good at everything. It goes from anger to sympathy seeking to emotional manipulation. They're going to use every trick in the book to get you to cave and give them that phone back. It's as simple as that, especially if they're ADHD kids. They are master manipulators, and they're going to know exactly what to do to get you to cave, pull at your heartstrings, and give them that phone back. They're going to try every trick in the book. But like I said earlier, the parents who stay strong and focus on that light of the end of the tunnel and realize, hey, my child's probably going to live to about 85 years old, 80 years old, whatever the life expectancy is, they can go 17, 18 years without a phone. That's fine. And then have it for the rest of their lives once their brain is ready. So the parents that keep their eyes on the light at the end of the tunnel and stay strong and don't give their phone back, those are the ones who reap the benefits. And maybe they end up getting them a flip phone just for calls and texts with no Snapchat, no internet access, just calls and texts, like flip phones like we all had as kids, and we were socially fine. We had no Snapchat as kids, and we still had lots of friends and did lots of things. Yep. We called landlines and all those things, and it was totally fine. Those are the ones that reap the benefits, and those are the ones that see their kid sleep better, eat better, care about school, care about relationships, care about their life, start reading books again, start caring about their grades. These are the ones, the second you give a kid a phone, it becomes the center of their life and all they care about. Why care about grades? Why care about friends? Why care about myself? Why care about my life? Why care about my future? I can just lay on TikTok for hours. And hundreds of thousands of parents are dealing with this every single day because they gave their kid a phone before their brain was ready.
Yeah, and I appreciate the nuance there, where it's like, it's not the telephone component of the phone; it's the internet component and the apps and the addictive mechanisms. Like, if you can strip it down so you can make phone calls and send texts. And
yeah, we call this calling this a phone might be the biggest joke in the history of the earth. That's not right. A phone. That's like calling a cigarette. That's like calling a cigarette a lollipop. It's the exact same thing. That's not a phone. That is a supercomputer. This thing is more powerful than the laptop I had in college. That is a supercomputer in your pocket all the time, and this is all part of big tech's genius marketing. Let's call it a phone. So it's a social tool for communication. It's all part of it helps you. Oh, they need a phone. But if we all called them supercomputers, which is what they really are, it would be a lot easier to recognize the damage they cause.
Yeah, it's like super crack supercomputer.
Correct.
Just destroy your mind as quickly as possible machine.
And that's exactly what's happening.
Okay, so the parents go through it, the kids going through it. What about like the social piece where, and I have some friends that we talk about this, where, hey, my kid is in high school now. All of their friends only use Snapchat, and then they're embarrassed if they don't have it, and I'm pressured to give it to them. Like, do the kids actually experience a social dip? Do they end up filtering who are their actual friends and not? Or what do they go through in that regard?
Many times they do end up figuring out who are their true friends, and they end up making better friends. Sure, I've definitely seen that happen. But this whole concept of the social dip, I have not seen it. The phone is no longer in their life, so they're no longer drawn to the couch or drawn to the bed to just doom scroll for hours. They're now more motivated to go out and do more things and join an after-school club, join an activity, join a sport, go to the YMCA, start exercising, start going on walks, start going on hikes. So this whole concept of the social dip so first of all, every parent needs to understand this. If your child's relationships are dependent on Snapchat, then they have no relationships at all. That's not a relationship. That
Right.
friendships are not reliant on an app or a method of communication. So the more you tell yourself, my son needs Snapchat to have friends, then guess what? Your son has no friends, period. You're like, there's no, oh, we're only friends because of Snapchat. I'm sorry. You think your son's social life runs on Snapchat? Your son has no social life. I'm sorry. Let's be honest for a second. We have to be realistic and tell the hard truths. Every single student we've ever worked with, like I said before, nothing is 100% accuracy. Snapchat's removed, phone is removed. They become more socially engaged and more successful socially. We are seeing this. The data is starting to show. The very wealthy families are sending their kids to screen-free schools, not giving them phones, and the families that can't afford it are sending their kids to public school where they're being given these horrible Chromebooks and these one-to-one devices that are the worst thing to ever happen to education. And those are the families that tend to work a lot of jobs, don't have a lot of time. So it's a lot easier to give your kid a screen, give your kid a phone. We're now starting to see the class divide of growing up without screens, growing up with screens. And growing up without screens is giving your kid a massive advantage in life. We're going to see this over the next 10 years, this class split of if you grew up without screens, wow, you must have been privileged. You must have come from a wealthy family in the suburbs and went to a private school. And it's going to be a lot more easy for you to find employment and live an independent life if you grew up without screens. And if you grew up with constant screens in your face, that's going to be more associated with more lower class.
Right. And then it sounds like probably less executive function as a result.
Correct. And less employability and more, lower income.
Man, right? Like employability, romantic connections, like being able to be a confident player in the dating space of attracting a mate.
Yep.
It's so unfortunate. What an interesting thing, because it's so ironic, because the tech devices cost money, but then it's like you say, I think it's really the other way around, where it's the fortunate ones that can go without it.
Yep.
Okay, so the first one, like the kind of false premise, is that the kids are going to lose their social lives, and in fact, your experience is that the opposite. And then what's the second one?
So the second one is that if you remove technology from their lives, they won't be prepared for a tech-filled future, which is absolute nonsense. Every single parent right now who is a working person and works every single week and works every single day, how often between birth and 18 were you training for what you do now? So every single cardiologist, every single police officer, every single firefighter, you were putting out fires every day when you were a teenager. You were preparing for those things. Technology has always been that phenomenon where the younger generation is better than the older generation. So your child most likely already has their tech skills. They're already pretty good at it. At school, there used to be computer labs, not one-to-one devices, where we would learn Word and PowerPoint and research and how to spot fake news and those kinds of things, which can be learned and can be figured out. But with the rise of AI now, AI is really the second beast now being added to this. The future employment, AI is coming for entry-level jobs. It's coming for college graduate jobs, the 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old jobs. So where AI is going to be able to replace those basic things. So actually, the skills of the future that make you employable are not tech skills. They're actually people skills. They're actually communication skills, able to work in a team, able to be creative and share ideas and be flexible and engage with people face to face in a team. Those are the skills of the future. AI is going to do everything else. For years and years, we were telling kids and teenagers and young adults to quit your job, don't get a 4-year program, go to coding school, quit everything and put all your money into coding school and learn how to be a coder. You haven't heard that a lot in the past 2 years, have you? Why? Because now AI does the coding for you. So what happened to all of those people that put all their money into learning to become a coder and learned all these coding systems and now can't find a job because of AI, because they were told that technology is the skill of the future. It is once again big tech's marketing that these are essential tools for life, which is a total lie. And we're being sold a bill of goods that are total lies that are causing you to parent with fear and keep these screens in your child's life. And it's working.
And I can tell you from experience in my career, working for companies, my career being an entrepreneur, my career being a co-founder in some companies, very, very consistent lessons, echoing what you said, which is the human skills and the soft skills are the most valuable thing, even in the technical roles. And so I've had jobs in which I've had, 430 IT support technicians that were part of my organization. And I've had jobs where I've had, like I'm a co-founder in a gym franchise, lots of strength coaches and stuff.
Awesome.
And it's very, very technical strength training programs where we actually changed our entire approach to personnel from prioritizing technical skill, even for the strength coaches, into prioritizing the soft skills and putting the EQ over the IQ. And so I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I think it's an interesting take to look at it from the AI perspective, because that's what the AI will be worse at least for some time is the soft skill stuff, and
correct.
And also when people say, like, even if we put AI aside, when people tell me, given my technical background, when people tell me my kid needs to learn this thing to be ready for tech, like I also just I think it's a false premise. Like on its face, I think tech is too giant, it's too giant and loose of a term. And it's actually the same way that the phone is a supercomputer with a million functions, and the phone is one of those functions. It's very, like, what you need to learn with tech is actually very specific. So if you're going to learn how to be a chemist as a technical skill, you'd go down a path of a narrow set of things to be a chemist. If you're going to learn to be a software developer, you'd go down a path that none of the paths that are career related have anything to do with knowing how to use a device. You learn a set of tools and skills that are specific. And so anyways, I'm on the same page with you. Yeah.
Yeah, and this whole concept of skills, this is what you hear so often from parents is, I just want my son to develop skills. Why can't he have the skills to manage his phone and do other things? I want him to have the skills. And we have to be very honest with parents. That is an absolute pipe dream. It is not going to happen. You can't teach an alcoholic to have the skills to live in a house where there's alcohol everywhere and to have the skills to resist it. You can't teach a gambling addict the skills to go to a casino and have the skills to resist gambling. It's not going to happen. And we see parents all the time. My son's addicted to his phone. And I see on the intake forms all the time, big time screen addiction. Please teach my child how to do non-screen based tasks. I'm sorry. This is not like having someone mow your lawn or having someone clean your house. You can't delegate this onto another professional. You brought the screens into your kid's life. You are the only one who can take them out. So along the rise of screens came with the rise of helicopter parenting and permissive parenting, and kids becoming the co-parent to their parents. And parents are terrified to be the bad guy. Here's another cognitive distortion. If I take my kid's phone away, it will ruin our relationship and they'll hate me forever, and it will completely repair the relationship. They'll be traumatized and this will hurt us forever, which is absolute nonsense. I've never seen that happen once in the hundreds and hundreds of families we've helped. But that's a big part of it is this whole concept that they can have skills to be able to use this incredibly addicting drug. It's not going to happen. And this concept of limits and limits and limits, it's not going to work with ADHD kids. You can't put limits on an ADHD kid because they're going to fight, nail and claw every single day to break down those limits and get as much screen time as possible. You're going to need to wait and wait and wait as long as humanly possible. And in some cases, if you already gave them tech before their brain was ready, you have to get rid of it. The concept of skills is nonsense.
Yep, with you 100%. So true, man. And it's really embracing the fact that we know in our guts that this stuff is bad, and that we have to really pay attention to that.
We have the research and data to tell us that.
And now the data too, to like, hey, like
mountains of data.
Because what you're saying really overall here is, listen, like we know what the right path is, and the right path is hard. It's hard. It's painful for a time.
Nothing worth doing is easy.
Right? Dude, I was just saying that the other day. Like and this is one of those things that is worth doing. It's worth doing for yourself as a parent, and it's worth doing for your kids. And one of the consistent things I hear from people, from young people, and parents alike, where they say, okay, I actually, I didn't give my kid a smartphone, and then now they're in college, and now they're an adult, whatever. And they thank me for doing that. I very consistently hear that. And then past number 2, was there a 3, or otherwise I have other questions for you too, but.
Yeah. So number 3 was that concept of skills, and give them skills and those sorts of things. And then number 4 is, I'm addicted as a parent, so I can't take my kid's phone away. When we have to look at the realistic concept of this is, number 1, you're an adult with a fully developed brain that most likely has a job, is a parent, and is doing those things. You can have a phone and balance it. Is it taking over your life to unhealthy levels? Probably, but at least you have a fully developed brain. So let's think for a second. I have a phone. My kid should have a phone. So should they also be able to drive a car? Should they also be allowed to join the army? Should they be allowed to drink alcohol? Should they be allowed to vote? Do you trust your kid voting? Absolutely not. None of those things. Your brain is ready for those adult things. Their brain is not. Yes, your phone has negatively impacted your life. Why would you then wish that negative impact upon your child?
Yeah, totally. I think there was somebody I was just having a chat with this morning in the comment thread about, you'd be the worst parent ever if you took away a kid's phone, or if you restricted their phone, if you locked it down. And
advice.
I asked them,
horrible advice.
Do you feel the same way about access to weapons? Do you feel the same way about access to drugs? Like, these are things that we know are dangerous, and so therefore we proceed very carefully. We lock the stuff up, and we gotta lock down the phone too. So it's. Now, granted, the person commenting, I think they were a kid, probably, who were just not a fan of having their phone locked down. But it's great. I love the fact that you actually have hands-on experience with working with families in this, and you've seen the cycle and you've seen the success. Like, that to me is a very meaningful part of what you're conveying here. Is like, there's not much I value more than hands-on experience. So you've seen hundreds of families through processes like this.
Oh, yeah. So we've worked with over 500 families. We've helped them all fully eliminate screens, not decrease them, fully eliminate them, over 500 families. And I'm not sitting here, taking data on every single one of them. These are all individual families we've worked with since 2016. But I can't think of a single family off the top of my head that eliminated screens and ended up regretting it. I can tell you hundreds of stories of kids who did it and then went on to achieve great things and lived happy, healthy lives and eventually got a phone when their brain was ready. But I can't think of a single family we worked with that got rid of screens and said, why the heck did we do that? Things got worse. It always gets better.
Very interesting. Now, and is that getting rid of screens? Are these kids also dealing with screens in school? Was that part of the challenge?
Always part of the challenge. So obviously, we use the word screens very loosely. There's, you were kind of hinting at it before. It's not really screens that are the problem. It's the internet. So the common access to the endless, disgusting, horrible world of the internet is the bad part here. So like, for example, a flip phone is fine. A smartphone is bad. Xbox, PlayStation is bad, but Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, GameCube is fine. A regular sitting there and watching cable television with commercials is fine. Your kid can do that, especially on rainy days, snowy days, whatever. They can sit there and watch things. Just don't allow access to YouTube on the smart TV, because then they'll end up watching they'll end up watching videos of other people playing video games, and it's just like them. And it's just like them playing video games. So there's good screens and there's horrible screens. So when we say eliminating screens, we mean canceling their cell phone plan, taking the Xbox, the PlayStation, selling it back to GameStop permanently. They still allow TV. They still have family movie nights. They have flip phones, those kinds of things. Perfectly fine. But no access to a smartphone, no access to video games that are connected to the internet. That's really the biggest part here. And, generally overall, in terms of eliminating those screens, you tend to see some significant progress. And then at school, if they get a Chromebook, we have to develop some sort of guidelines around that. So number one, families are legally allowed to opt out of the Chromebook. A public school or a private school cannot force that upon your child. They'll try to, but you're legally allowed to opt out of it, which we have helped many families successfully do. We've also helped many families get blocks on the Chromebook, where the student can only access educational sites. We get YouTube blocked, ChatGPT blocked, pretty much anything outside of Google Classroom completely blocked. And then we also get it in the student's IEP, where the Chromebook never comes home. They get everything done at school-wise, and that Chromebook never gets home. And then, if, those things can't happen, or it's just too much of a struggle or a fight, we coach the parents through our parent training. Your child has 30 minutes, an hour, any set of time to get work done, to get homework done on the Chromebook. Once that time is up, you take that Chromebook from them, whether they say they're done with the homework or not. You take it from them, and then you don't give it back to them until they leave for school in the next morning. The last thing you need is a child or teen taking that Chromebook into their bedroom behind closed doors, saying they're doing work the whole time, because they're lying to you. You give them a set amount of time. You say from 4 to 5 p.m. is your homework time. At 5 p.m., I am shutting the internet off. I am taking that computer, whether you say you're done or not.
Man, that's great. Because like my kid goes to a public school right now, and we're really seriously considering doing homeschooling next year. But in the meanwhile, they gave him a Chromebook, they gave him a Google account, and put all of his personal information in it without asking for us or or even telling us. Like, I found out after the fact. And actually, sounds kind of silly, but I didn't really know you could opt out. Like, I just figured that their systems just required it, because they do they have this like iReady, standardized testing crap on there. And then what's crazy to me is that when they're done with their work, they're allowed to go on the Chromebook and play games.
Yep.
And the games, there's one called, the name of the game is called Cool Math Games.
Yep.
And my son showed it to me. Has nothing to do with math. It's just regular games. And there's ads all over the place. And I'm like, it's just a straight scam. And and that's their like reward for finishing their schoolwork, instead of just either sitting there and being bored, or reading a book, or going outside.
Or talking to each other and socializing. You can walk through most public schools now in the middle of the school day, and you can hear a pin drop, and everything is quiet because no one's talking to each other. These personal school laptops, I've made it my personal goal to do everything I can to end ed tech forever. I work very closely with Emily Churkin, the screen time consultant, Andy Liddell from the EdTech law firm. If you have a child who's been harmed by EdTech in any way, I highly recommend you check out Andy Liddell at the EdTech law firm and set up a free call with him. Jared Horvath, who just wrote the book, The Digital Delusion. This is the worst thing to ever happen to education. There is so much data now to show that ever since EdTech came about, everything has plummeted. Reading scores, writing scores, behaviors, attendance, everything has gone down the drain. I just went to a presentation by Jared Horvath yesterday, and he said that Maine was the very first state to introduce one-to-one laptops. And when they did, back in like 2007 or something, they were number 2 in the country in education. 10 years later, they're now 48th. They have plummeted that far down because they've had screens the longest. They have completely negatively harmed all aspects of education, period.
That is deep. I mean, that is like the sheer volume of children that have been set up for failure with that.
We are playing a sick science experiment on an entire generation of youth, and we have enough data now to show how deeply we've harmed these kids. And it's terrifying for the future.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let's see here. So, okay, do you see any common mistakes? So talking about executive function and the development of executive functions in kids, are there any common mistakes that you see parents make in this way where they're accidentally doing stuff that causes negative outcomes?
Yeah, they unintentionally become permissive parents. So, the definition of permissive parenting is to overindulge your child to avoid conflict. And if your child has executive functioning delays, ADHD, they have a self-regulation deficit disorder. And the ADHD brain is different. It's neurodiverse, and it's very, very stimulated by 2 specific things: screens and conflict. Screens and conflict. Their brain is hardwired towards instant gratification, and it's constantly seeking screens and conflict. And if screens are not available, they'd rather get into a 3-hour fight. They'd rather argue. You tell an ADHD child to go put on their shoes, you're giving them 2 options: put on their shoes and hear a quick good job, or not put on their shoes and have you chase them around the house for 3 hours. You know which one they're going to pick. So parents often unintentionally become permissive. The child gains too much authority in the home, and the parents want them to join a club, a sport, an activity, whatever it may be. And the child has learned that they can get their way through arguing, complaining, negotiating, fighting, manipulation, all of these different things, where now the child is living in their comfort zone every single day and is never being pushed. Parents have to recognize parents are not engineers. They don't engineer a child into what they eventually become. They shepherd them through life by pushing them out of their comfort zone. The best parents don't accept no. The best parents sign their kids up for things and make them an expectation and not a choice, whether your kid likes it or not. And just like you gave the example earlier, the kids that didn't get phones as kids grow up and thank their parents. The parents of the kids that have authoritative parents that make them do things they don't want to do and don't take no for an answer and make them do clubs and sports and activities and grow up being adults that know multiple languages, can play instruments, have talents in art, enjoy outdoor exercise, enjoy nature, those things. Those are the ones that look back and say, thank you for being an authoritative parent.
Makes a lot of sense. I could see that, and I'm thinking about different people that I know or that I've known through my life, and where their parents are one way or another, and it tracks.
You got it.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. And then, and we've kind of covered this, but just to package it together, perhaps. So for kids that don't build executive function skills versus kids that do, if we explore the two paths and where they lead, how would you describe kids that lack, and let's pick 18 years old, an 18-year-old that has not developed executive function skills, what traits do they exhibit versus an 18-year-old that has developed executive function skills?
Yeah, so the simplest way to describe this is if you have not developed executive functions, you are highly prompt dependent. You are dependent on other people to be your executive functions for you. So basic tasks of daily living are not going to get done without constant adult assistance. Getting up in the morning, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, doing your laundry, cooking food, eating food, getting to school on time, getting your work done. You're going to need constant supervision and handholding from mom and dad. If you have strong executive functions, you can get these things done independently without adult help, and you have much greater chances of getting a job, keeping a job, being employable, making friends, and keeping friends. So an 18-year-old with no executive function skills pretty much is not going to get a job. They are going to, like most teenagers are supposed to do as part of, growing up. So getting a summer job, a part-time job, not going to happen. Not going to have face-to-face real social relationships. All of their relationships are going to be online and dependent on the internet. And they're probably going to have an incredibly messy room, very little actual life skills and talents. And they probably have tons of accommodations and tons of supports and tons of dependence. And if you have an 18-year-old with strong executive functioning skills, they're probably going to want to get a job and want to make money and want to do things. And because they have friends that they go out and go to stores with and go to parties with and go on trips with, and they're going to want to have money to do those things, which is part of growing up and becoming a teenager and a young adult. So it's all about prompt dependence versus independence.
And so if we take that 18-year-old that has not developed those executive function skills, and they recognize, or they listen to this and they go, hey, you know what, maybe this is something I can work on. Where would they start? Is it something that they can practice? Do they need external support to develop this? Like, let's say they're out of scope of their parents, they've moved out. Is it a thing that they can achieve?
Of course. Yeah, exactly. The prefrontal cortex in the executive functioning system is the most plastic and malleable part of the brain. All of the research tells you that executive functioning skills can be developed, period. Step one, like we've talked about, you are what you most continually do. You're going to have to look at your screen time. That's always obstacle number one. If the majority of your day is spent in the virtual world, you're going to have meaningless, useless virtual world skills and zero real world skills. So step one is to look at your screen time. If you're on your phone too much, you're playing video games, you're on YouTube too much, you are not going to strengthen executive functioning skills if your life is spent on the internet. Step two is to get involved in as many different things as possible. Start to fill your day. If you're at college, you need to join clubs, sports, activities. You need to be spending as minimal time in the dorm room as possible. Get involved, get a part-time job if you have to, start exercising, start reading books. It's all about experiences. We have trained our brain that skills are only gained through lecture listen, like how school works. I'm going to lecture you on the periodic table and you'll know all about it. I'm going to lecture you on the Civil War, you know all about it. So we've been conditioned to think kids learn through lectures and monologues and heart-to-hearts. That's not executive functions. Executive functions are learned through hands-on relationships and experiences. So if you're a young adult listening to this, that's the name of the game. Relationships, real face-to-face social relationships with as many different people as possible, different races, different religions, different socioeconomic statuses. Learn their story, learn their journey, learn their experiences, and get to know them. And then number two is varied experiences. Get out of your comfort zone, get out of the dorm, get out of your apartment, and get involved in your community, your school, your job, whatever it may be. Get out and experience the world.
Love it. Man, that's good. I like that. I mean, that's really fantastic to hear that part of the brain is plastic, that
Oh
can
yeah,
be developed, it can be worked on. Like there's so much hope and positivity there.
you
That's
got
really
it.
great. And my last question for you is, if for the parents listening to this and they're relating to what a lot of what's being said, do you have a piece of general, like if you could pick just one thing as a general piece of advice for parents, like if you could just do one thing, I recommend you do this first. What might that be?
Well, the most helpful and practical thing that I've learned for parents, number one, is to let's use social media and the internet for what it's intended to do, to actually be social and bring people together. So most parents tend to be involved, or at least a member of, their neighborhood, their community, their school district Facebook group. Most parents tend to be in the Facebook group for their general town, county, state, whatever it may be. I highly recommend you go onto that group and you put an anonymous message, you get on there and you just write, "Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty tired of these screens. The phone has taken over my son's life, my daughter's life, and has ruined our relationship and ruined their day to day. I'm also really tired of these Chromebooks. Who's with me for some actual change?" Because if you cancel your kid's phone plan, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's going to destroy them socially, and every other kid's going to have it but them. So we need strength in numbers here. Get on your Facebook group and find other parents. Try to find 5, 6 parents in your neighborhood, in your kid's class, in your kid's grade that are willing to cancel the phone plans all at the same time. Be in this together. And we've worked with some parents that, on Monday, all the kids come to my house. On Tuesday, all the kids go to this house. On Thursday, they go to this house, and they become kids again. And they're riding bikes, and they're skateboarding, and they're doing things in the woods and the parks and the playgrounds. And they become kids again, and they start to actually develop skills. So get on those Facebook groups and get some strength in numbers for other parents who are exhausted, because right along the rise of screens came social isolation, where kids wake up, go to school, come home, stay home. And within the walls of the home are all those deep, dark secrets of, you wouldn't even imagine, the screaming and the yelling and the crying and the breaking of things and the physical aggression. Like, oh, he's an angel at school. We never get a complaint. But once he's home, once he passes that doormat and he's in this house, he is a completely different person. This is where that concept of masking came about. Oh, he's masking all day at school. He comes home and I have to be his punching bag, which is what social media taught me to do, which is nonsense. No, it's just become these deep, dark secrets of the home that you're too embarrassed to tell your friends about. So once you get on those Facebook groups and you start to explain all the different things that are happening to your child because of screens, you're going to have 10, 15 parents say, "Oh my God, me too. My son's doing the same thing. My daughter's doing the same thing. Let's do something about it." We need action. Therapists are not going to save you. Counselors are not going to save you. Politicians definitely are not going to save you. The school is not going to save you. This is parents need to save their kids.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. That's very, very beautifully put. And it's very specific. You can use these tools to collect and commune with other parents. And I love, like, yes, if you go out there and you are vulnerable, then people are going to let you know that they're going through the same stuff. I mean, I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on the Family IT Guy podcast. I think this is awesome. I hope that everybody listens to this. We'll see if the algorithm agrees. And man, yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the incredible work you're doing. I know firsthand how hard it is to, do a podcast and do all the behind the scenes work. And you've had some fantastic guests, and you've provided a great informational service to a lot of people out there. So thank you for all the work you're doing.
You're welcome, man. Appreciate it. All right, Mike, take care.
Take care.
All right, see ya. Bye-bye.